Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, and I am going to be talking about Big Little Lies, Season 1, Episode 6. It is called Burning Love. So, full spoilers for the episode as always. So, if you pay attention to my clothes, you might be catching on to the fact that I'm actually recording this review the same night as I did the Episode 5 review. I went and watched Episode 6 straight away and came back to record. Yeah, partly because I have a tight week before the season 2 starts, but also because I wanted to watch the next one. And so I've been starting with Celeste and Perry like almost every episode now, because I think their plot is the most gripping, I suppose is the best word. And there was certainly some gripping in this episode, because I think this will always be the episode. If when you remember back to the episodes of this first season, I think this will always be the one where Celeste hit Perry in the dick with a tennis racket. That is always going to be what this episode is. And it's hard not to get some glee out of it because of who he is. Don't get me wrong, as a man who does in fact have a penis, the thought of the pain does make me wince somewhat, but he deserves it. So it's a it's a bit of a like yay moment, even though there's a lot of dark stuff to come before and after. There's a lot of obviously stuff around it. It is not a fun plot by any means, but just in the sense of that we're watching a TV show and that the bad character gets a little bit of comeuppance, just a little bit, but we'll get to the reasoning in a second. So he has to leave for another trip. He's going to Phoenix, and he is leaving, and he's going to be gone for like 2 days or whatever. He's back on Thursday. And Celeste points out that he's going to miss the opening of the puppet thing, the puppet show, the play that Madeline's been involved with, and he basically says, "I don't want you to go either. I want you to come with me." And he frames it as a romantic thing. And I think what's really interesting about the show in terms of Celeste's character is that I feel like from episode 1 or 2, most viewers, or at least I was, but I assume most viewers are kind of catching on to how he operates. That he's very romantic when he feels insecure, and as the series goes on and she's going to therapy, she actually starts to sort of admit these things herself. It is actually very fascinating, Well, it's fascinating, but it's very satisfying, is what I mean to say, as a viewer, because it's not only just confirming what we were guessing, but it's also there's an inherent frustration to the way she's denying things, because she's not getting out. She's not breaking free. You feel for her and you wish she would break free. Like, she has to find the strength herself. So it's satisfying for her to come to the conclusions that we've already come to when she goes to therapy, and she says that in therapy. It's like, oh, he wanted me to go with, and he's very affectionate. She admits that she has the upper hand and is the stronger of the two after he's hit her. When the bruises are there, the harder he hits, the longer she's kind of the one in power, and the more he'll be apologetic and romantic and try and kind of win brownie points as much as he can. But once the bruises have went away, he gets the power back, and it's this kind of cycle that just never seems to end, and seems to even be getting longer and longer, because he's hitting her harder and harder as he's getting more violent as they go. And once again, the therapist is just dropping bombshells on her, not to us, but to her, but they feel like bombshells in terms of the dialogue, because they are such just very blunt things to say. And in this show, because everyone hides their feelings and everyone's hiding behind, masks of various kinds, having someone actually just come out and say the things that need to be said is actually quite shocking. It's kind of like when, you have a TV show where there's no swearing, there's no F-bombs, right? But 15 episodes in, someone will drop an F-bomb and it'll actually have this impact. It'll have this hit to it, because we've not heard anyone say that. So it feels so much more weighty because of that. Kind of the same thing here when she just flat out says, "When are you going to leave him?" And she's like, I think you're being a bit unethical here, therapist. And she's like, "Well, you can report me, but here's what you do in the meantime. You need to get an apartment. You need to get an apartment, and you have to stock the fridge, make sure the beds are prepared, so that the day that you decide you have to run, and that day is going to come." And the therapist is very blunt about this again. She's not saying if, she's saying when. It's there for you, and you can go there. And keep it in the local district, and so you don't have to disrupt the kids' school lives or anything like that. But get an apartment. And this is obviously a big blow to her. She's kind of really getting the weight of this. But so this moment of the scene is fantastic, but the highlight of the scene that tops even this is when she then tells her to start documenting when she's abused and to take photos of the injuries and the bruises and to document down everything that happens, and then ultimately says, have you told anyone about this abuse other than me? And Celeste says no. And as far as we know, that is absolutely true. I believe her here in this scene. The most she's done is tell Madeline that they have like this passionate sex. So and then she does this great thing, and for some reason, like, I don't know if it's just the genius of the scene or if I'm just genuinely forgetful, but I actually kind of forgot during the scene that Celeste was a lawyer. Even though, we made a big deal about that a couple of episodes ago, and we had that great scene where she came in and did her lawyer thing. That's been a big part of her character, it absolutely has. But I was so into the emotion of the scene that when the therapist said, okay, let's pretend I'm the lawyer in court over a custody battle, because a lot of this is about custody battles, it's about winning the kids, and Perry's the type of guy who's got the ego. That's the final point she says. He's got the money, he's got all the resources, but he's got the ego, more importantly, to try and see the thing through and like fight for his kids. And she says, she starts asking all these questions. Why haven't you told anyone that he abused you? Why did you always say that he was a great father? And we've heard her say that. She said that multiple times throughout this show, regardless of what he's doing. You've always said he's a great father. Why didn't you ever say anything about it? And she basically goes to this really harsh line of questioning that Celeste can't answer. And Celeste is seeing her point. And because I'd forgotten in the emotion of the moment that she was also a lawyer, at the end of the scene, when the therapist says, and you're a lawyer, you understand this, it actually kind of had this like double whammy punch on me, where I'm like, holy shit. Like, I think what's so beautiful about it is that the therapist took something that the world that she knows, the world that she's good at, the world where she feels powerful, and shows how it's going to be used against her and how she's been with Perry. And it's not that it should be that way, it's just the way it is. It's the way that she has to prove all these things to get her kids. Because she flat out says that one day he's going to hit the kids. Like, he's hitting you now, sure, but he's going to hit the kids eventually. That's going to happen too. He's that type of person, at least with a reasonable expectation. So this scene is very good. And again, Nicole Kidman's, acting her ass off. Her reaction, her silent reaction to a lot of this stuff and not being able to respond to any of these questions. And that's what the beauty of it is, that she knows that this makes her look like her case is, empty. She knows she has no case. She knows this in a professional level, and I feel like most people would understand what the therapist is getting at, and they'd understand it. But as a lawyer, she definitely understands it. As a lawyer, she knows how it can be used, and I think it scares her a little bit. And and once again, Perry comes home early as a romantic gesture, saying, "Hey, I couldn't miss opening night," and it's like this thing. Oh, you came back for me, and it's almost like maybe he's won her over a little bit. But of course, they're in the big closet again. They're trying to, she's getting ready. She's got this dress on, and he's not quite ready yet. And she's like, "No, get ready because we're going to miss opening night." And he basically starts, touching her and groping her, trying to initiate sex. She's like, "No, we don't have time." And she tries to walk away. And it's worth mentioning here, this is probably the most graphic they've got with these two, in the sense that now I'm not necessarily sure if it was his real penis. I mean, definitely not the one that get hit. But it's just the way, sometimes the way a penis is shot coming out the trousers, you can kind of tell that, okay, it's not the actor's real dick. They've just got like a fairly lifelike thing just for a quick shot, and that's fine. But you actually see like a hand on it, because he puts her hand on it. But she tries to leave, and he grabs her violently. And her instinct here, instead of whatever the normal instinct is, she grabs a tennis racket, like I said at the start of the episode, and smacks him right in the dick. And she doesn't show up to opening night. And later on, we hear the others talking about it, and as far as they're aware, it was during sex. Like, she she crushed his penis during sex somehow. And we'll get to them talking about that later, because that's more of a Madeline and Ed scene. But when they get home, and the babysitter who's there watching the kids seems like she knows a fair amount here, because she seems nervous to leave them. And it's not until Celeste says it's okay that she goes. But she's like, "I'll get you some ice." And as she's walking to the kitchen, he just mutters to himself, "You're lucky I didn't kill you." And then he limps away. Off he goes. And yeah, so this is pretty clearly the first time he's outright said that, like, or threatened that he would kill her, right? There's been a lot of certainly scenes that we've had witness to, the flashback during the sex scene last episode where he was holding her head down, where she was kind of suffocating. There's definitely been times where it's came close to that kind of idea, but this is the first time where he's flat out just saying it. And sure enough, like the next day, she goes and she's looking at apartments. I mean, in fact, I think she was already maybe looking at apartments before that scene. I actually can't remember what the order was. She goes back to spend the night in the apartment after this, though, for sure, because when she leaves, and she just says she's going out for dinner with Jane, and she's actually spending the night in the apartment. We end her story here in the episode with her crying in the apartment after watching the sunset. So really powerful stuff, and I think her story has been largely the most captivating because it's maybe the most like threatening straight up. It's funny because I've barely talked about the potential murder or murder victim or murder suspect throughout the show, because it's almost like the least important element of the show. Like, I'm sure like whatever murder happens will feel built up to, and it'll feel like a big deal next episode, but I'm not really thinking about it episode to episode. I'm too wrapped up in the drama to be thinking about murder mystery stuff. And obviously, Perry's such an obvious choice for either, to be honest. So I don't know, we'll see. I kind of hope not, though. I genuinely hope, I kind of want to see this court battle. I genuinely want to see Perry have to like find out that he's being left, which might happen next episode, admittedly, which might inspire said killing. But I definitely I want to see that, and I want to see them in court. I want to see this stuff, and does she tell someone in time? Does she tell someone next episode? Because I thought we were going to get a scene when she tells Madeline. I really thought we were going to get that this episode, and we didn't. So I'm wondering if we get that next episode. And what's really interesting, actually, is the scene where she's on the phone early on to Madeline, and they're talking about Jane because Madeline's found out what Jane did, and she went to see the guy last episode, and she's Celeste is like, oh, maybe I'll talk to her, and Madeline says something along the lines of, oh, it's like she can barely relate to me, like never mind your perfect life. And the irony here, the dark irony here, of course, is that Celeste is being assaulted. Like, Jane and Celeste may actually be able to kind of relate to each other in a way that Madeline can't comprehend right now, and it's a really dark irony here because Celeste just says, don't say that. I'm not perfect. I'm not this great person. Which, again, I talk about the scenes having these thematic links throughout the episodes. There's a scene later on where Madeline has a similar speech to Abby about not being perfect. Like, don't think I'm perfect. Don't put me in this pedestal. Like, I make mistakes. But so Celeste is So it was a beautifully dark irony here, where she doesn't think that Celeste is a good fit to talk to Jane about the fact that she was abused and the idea that she wants revenge and to stick up for herself, when they should be talking to each other. They should be leaning on each other, probably, because they have this shared experience. It's not the exact same in situation, but there is a lot of overlap. The feelings, certainly, there's a lot of overlap. So no, Celeste's plot was phenomenal as per usual. So yeah, Jane with the gun. I actually forgot to mention last episode that she was pulled over by a cop at the end, just for speeding, and she gets a speeding ticket by the looks of it. But she tells Madeline she went there, and she doesn't admit that she had the gun. Not until later. She doesn't do that until later, where she wants to admit to her. This episode, in a lot of ways, actually, thinking about it, is all three lead characters finally admitting things to other characters. That's very much a theme in this episode, because obviously Celeste, well, she doesn't really actually, she admits a lot to the therapist. She doesn't really admit everything. She sort of admits it by what she doesn't say, I guess. But it definitely feels the most honest we've felt her. Her breaking down the apartment and making that move, I guess, actually, let me rephrase it in a better way. She's honest to herself. By the end of the episode, Celeste is honest to herself, and that's why she's willing to make the move. And Jane eventually is honest to Madeline about taking the gun, and that she didn't think she was going to shoot him, but she didn't know. She didn't know for sure. And, because we get this scene of her driving back at the start, and it intercuts with Ziggy staying over at Madeline's, and she's, he's playing with Chloe, and they're running around and having fun. And it's kind of this stark contrast between the two. But yeah, so basically there's a petition going around to suspend Ziggy, and she finds out in the class, and it's actually the teacher who's come and spoken to her before who tells her and says she's not happy about it, the principal's not happy about it, this is not how they do things, but she wants her to know that it's happening, that there's people signing this petition. And it just so happens that Renata and Gordon are coming out of the school somewhere else, and Jane storms out when she sees them to confront them and says, "It was this you that did this petition? What is this?" And they have a fight. I mean, Jane kind of starts pushing her and grabbing at her, and eventually it ends in kind of an accidental eye gouge. Essentially, she's like, "Oh my eye!" Renata's like, "I'm going to sue you." Can I just point out the irony here that they're all obsessed with what's happening to their kids, that ultimately what Renata doesn't want her kid to be involved in, she's now involved in, and that she's having a bit of a fight on school grounds. The fact that they're on the school when they have this kind of fight is very interesting. But what's really fascinating about it is that this actually leads to some honesty, where it's after this where Jane talks to Madeline about that she did go with the gun, and she's more honest about how she feels, and she asked if there was other I think John Saxon was the guy's name, was there other results when she was looking for the attacker, because this guy wasn't the right one. And she goes to Renata's house, who's got a bandage over her eye, and basically just wants to apologize and says that she understands how she feels, because you feel like your daughter's, your kid's been attacked and you can't do anything about it, and I feel the same way about Ziggy, which is why I'm being defensive and why I lashed out. And they actually come to an understanding where they bond and understand how each other feels, and because she asked, "Do you really believe Ziggy did it?" And she's like, "I don't know." And Renata's very honest that Amabella has never changed her stance on what happened on orientation day, but she's adamant that Ziggy hasn't been doing anything since, and that they're friends. That he's a sweet boy, I think is the phrase. And there's a point here where they actually smell at each other, and then there's a later scene where this is before she gets it's actually she confronts the person who started the petition, the mum who started the petition. She gives her shit for it, but there's a scene where her and Renata are actually getting along, and they're talking about what to do, and they're being pleasant to each other. I don't even really remember what was said in this scene. They're standing next to the car, and they're being kind of friendly, and Renata's holding a coffee, and it is what it is. And she's that's what it was. She's asking for a play date with Ziggy. The idea being that they don't trust the teachers to keep an eye on them because there's so many kids. So why don't we set up a play date where we can both be there and both keep an eye and see if there's anything wrong? And her plan is to actually set up play dates with every kid in the class to eventually suss out the perp, which is wonderfully Renata. I'll say that it's wonderfully Renata. And Jane says, "What, even Chloe?" And she's like, "Well, if that evil bitch Madeline will allow it." But it's in jest, and it feels like she's reached this point where she's kind of dealt with this, even though the situation with dealing with her actual own her own issues with what happened to her, and admitting this to Ziggy, because Chloe apparently tells Ziggy that the puppets in the show they're going to see have sex. The kids don't go, but she says that's why the kids aren't allowed to go. And Ziggy starts asking questions about sex, so she has to kind of explain sperm and fertilization, as it were. And he's like, "So Dad fertilized you?" I mean, he says it wrong, so it's kind of cute, but so it's getting closer to being honest, although clearly there's a longer conversation that has to happen when he's older. I mean, certainly, but it feels like she's at the most honest place she's been in a while. And yeah, so it feels oddly optimistic for her, to a point by the end of the episode. So that's what it is. And then we have Madeline, who she has a fight with Ed because the whole crushing penis thing has Ed thinking, "Oh, we never have passionate sex. I mean, the sex is nice, but it's not passionate. It's not this. It's not that." And they kind of have this conversation again, and it's just before this actually when they're at the show where I keep forgetting the other dude's name, Joseph. Joseph's wife comes up to Madeline and says, "Are you the person that he cheated on me with? Because I know he cheated. She knows when he's lied, and she knows he's not over her yet." And we don't get to hear the end of the conversation. But finally, so we've been building up to this puppet show for a while, but we've also been building up to the dinner with Ed and Madeline, with Bonnie and Nathan. And before we get to the dinner, though, the other side of this is that Bonnie finds out and tells Nathan what this secret project is that we heard about last episode that Abby's involved in, and it turns out that she is auctioning off her virginity on the internet for a sex trafficking charity, which is a lot for a fella to hear. He gets very angry and upset, and he wants to shout at her. He wants to grab her laptop and snap it. Not that'll stop anything, but he's angry. He's upset, and this actually upsets the younger daughter that lives in the house, who we've not really seen that much of in a while. Is crying, so everything kind of like de-escalates there, and and they even have a little fight in the morning where Abby doesn't want to talk about it. She wants to just leave, and he's trying to have a calm conversation about it. He wants to talk to her. And she's very adamant that this is the right thing to do. That if a kid can be sold into sex slavery, then if no one cares about that, then they should care. A teenage girl from a rich town should absolutely cause a stir, I suppose. And he actually gets mad at Bonnie here and kind of blames her for the hippie lifestyle for convincing her this is a good idea. And then he, in defiance of her, eats more crappy cereal. He's got chocolate cereal, chocolate puffs or whatever they are, and he ends up pouring more in the bowl out of defiance. So even they're shown to have a little bit of disconnect. But we have the dinner, and this dinner is actually hilarious before the drama of it, because not only is Reese Witherspoon intoxicated and is being very silly and oh, look at the little fork, look at the little cups, and she's talking about every little detail and kind of making fun of it. It's very clear to me that or it was very clear to me that this was building up to them telling Madeline specifically what the project was. And I was actually starting to giggle at the thought of it. When he started to bring it up, I was like, oh yeah, we know what the project is. And she's like, oh, do tell. And he takes so long. He's like, well, you should know that it's for a good cause, and we should support the good cause. And I got angry when I heard about it. You should brace yourself for this. And he's like, oh, stop being about the bush. And he finally says she's auctioning her virginity, and they don't believe her. It's like, is this a sick joke? And he's like, nope, dead serious. And Madeline has such an honest reaction. She just starts vomiting, and she vomits onto the ground at first, and then she vomits onto the table, and then eventually the rule of threes, the third one's got to be the big one that tops it all. She vomits, and it actually hits Bonnie, and symbolism and all that aside, and she goes to talk to talk to Abby rather afterwards. And the beautiful thing about this is that it's a great scene because she's trying to be a mother and try and explain why she shouldn't do this, why this is a mistake, and why this is something that she'll regret no matter how good the cause is. The cause is great. The cause, obviously, it's a fine cause. No one is debating that. But she's trying to say it's a mistake, and this is where the comparison from earlier on, where Madeline thinks Celeste is perfect, but she's not really, because she doesn't open up about her problems, and Abby thinks that Madeline, is this perfect, thing that she can't live up to because she doesn't open up about her problems, and she has to admit things, and she admits she's made mistakes, and she actually flat out admits that she had an affair. She says that, and it's like she basically, for the first time in the entire show with her daughter, instead of manipulating, instead of trying to stack the deck to convince her to stay, or instead of just playing the games that she plays, she just lets herself be vulnerable and actually just says, the thing that she needs to do to convince her that, no, look, I've made mistakes, I had an affair, and I almost ruined my marriage and my relationship with my kids before it. And I was like, you still love Ed? And she sort of nods her head while she's crying. And what really works about this as a viewer is that we do still get, as much as we didn't get it with Ed, right? Where Ed, we have this different scene, which is very interesting in its own right, where he doesn't want to hear it. We still get to have the admission to someone. She still has to admit it to someone, and she admits it. Obviously, Chloe's too young to be getting this information, but she decides that her daughter is at an age where she needs this honesty. And it's the lack of this kind of honesty, perhaps. I mean, maybe not specifically stuff that's this big, but the lack of honesty in affection, I suppose, is what. Affection's not the right word, but you know what I mean. The lack of honesty is what made Abby have the pressure that drove her out of the house, and yeah. So if she'd been more honest with her before, that might never have happened. So no, it's a fantastic scene. Performances are very good. And as someone who's always kind of found Reese Witherspoon annoying, it's really upsetting to me to admit that she's that she's really good here, but she's really good here. So, yeah. So no, it was great. It was a great episode. So much culmination kind of happened, and obviously it's kind of weird that everyone's kind of in a better place right before the finale, but we still actually have to deal, of course, with whoever's actually harming at Amabel. Obviously we still have to deal with Perry and Celeste and how she leaves him and what sort of outcome that might have. There was someone, there was a creepy character like watching some of the characters a couple of times earlier in the season. Unless that was Joseph and I just didn't recognize him, but I don't think it was. I feel like he had a goatee. maybe I'm misremembering. Why would he be spying on Ed though? That's weird. That's weird. And it was just little things like Nathan like rehearsing his all of his songs because he wants to beat Ed, and just a little dick measuring contests like that kind of come up. And it's very much the same with the mothers. It's it's a different type of dick measuring, but it's essentially what it is. Especially between Madeline and Renata. It's just a different form of dick measuring. So no, a lot of great big stuff in this one. Again, therapy scene was great. Celeste actually taking action was very exciting. Madeline's like admissions were great. All good stuff. So there you go. That is episode 6, which means we have one more episode, which I'll have up before season 2 hits at the end of the week. Maybe it may even be the day of the finale, actually, or the day of the premiere that I'm thinking about. Maybe the day before. It depends. There's a lot of stuff going up this week, so I'm going to have to sprinkle them in at reasonable places. But that is Big Little Lies episode 6. So let me know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get me on the Twitters at mail_fuzz for channel updates, or you can get me personally on Twitter at Wibble89 if you wish. You can support the show and the channel and everything we do here by going to patreon.com/mailfuzztv and supporting us for as little as $1 per month. You get some bonuses, exclusive, some early stuff, and voting rights and certain tiers and all that kind of thing. So go have a look. You can also support us by like rating us on your podcast app, your iTunes or whatever, giving us 5 stars and a little review. It helps spread out the show to more people. Maybe more people will find us and enjoy us. But otherwise, that's us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?